Apple Intelligence kind of sucks. If we're calling a spade.
So the innovator's dilemma. The innovator's dilemma is there for both Google and Apple. So that was kind of focused on Google's revenue, but Apple just sits there and collects billions of dollars as well from Google through that partnership. And I think I love that term, innovator's dilemma. So it's like an innovator's dilemma. Can Google recreate something like Google search that can cannibalize Google search in the form of AI that also brings profitability like Google search did? I think the answer is no. I think the Google search business is a once in a lifetime, especially when you're trying to create something new with AI. And then the flip side to that with Apple, and I'll toss it to you, Pat, let's discuss. Can Apple create something new, unique AI search that people want to use, people want to like?
Yeah. Listen, I remember hearing, I think it was Sean that brought up originally on this show exactly what Apple makes from Google, like on average from this partnership that they have. And obviously it's an enormous revenue stream for Apple. Google, obviously, it's an enormous one too, because, I don't know how many countries Apple dominates or the iPhone dominates, but I know that in America, it was always like a big talking point that America was pretty much the only one at one point. I don't know if more countries have come on board with the iPhone, but in America, for sure, the iPhone dominates, right? That's just kind of how it's been for, I can't tell you how long. It feels like a long time. I can't tell you how many times, and I can speak to this dilemma a little bit, because I can't tell you how many times that I would go to Google, and I still do, but I click on Safari and I just type in my problem. I loved that. I didn't have to go to google.com and then type it in. Like, it was just nice. So like, I understand how seamless that was at the time, and how valuable that would be for Google to have people go directly to Google, because Apple could have done, and I think they had talked about it, making their own search engine, because they control the American consumer pretty much. If you go on Safari, why not make my own search engine and monetize it myself and possibly make more money? Now, they never ended up doing it, but now we find ourselves in a position, which is probably now good because AI has kind of changed it, where I don't always go to Google. I do. I definitely go to ChatGPT sometimes. I like the dialogue between myself and a ChatGPT. Now, I will say Google has pivoted a little bit, because what they do now is they have Gemini respond up top first, and then you have some other answers. So they don't always do exactly exactly how it's been in the past. But
Just to build off that point, Pat, that cannibalizes the revenue, because if you just do some quick search and Gemini gives you the quick answer and then you click out, if you don't click any of those links, they don't get paid on that. So it's starting to cannibalize its own business, which is fascinating.
It is. And listen, this is what innovation does. I mean, how many, I'm sure, Fortune 500 companies we could name over the last 100 years that seemingly were untouchable and now aren't, and now are gone. And because, either they didn't, we talked about, in a funny way, Joann Fabrics last week. Joann Fabrics, which world famous Joann Fabrics, which is obviously a much smaller company than these, but it seems as though, based off the very brief research that we did, they had no real intention in changing with the times, and it was fine to them, and they moved on. That was the end of it for them. They weren't getting into the AI fabric game. And so when it comes to all this, how do you develop a system? Because you'd have to imagine that if it's going to go straight to AI search, Apple has a partnership with ChatGPT and OpenAI. So that was Apple Intelligence. Like you said, it's been I would call it a flop. I needed a new phone, but like, I could have gone without it. As I've gotten older, I don't really care about having the new iPhone every year. And like you said, it doesn't seem like the iPhone's changing all that much from year to year. So like, if I don't need one, why am I really going out and buying one? But Apple Intelligence intrigued me, and so I was like, oh, let me go get this. Let me go.
We talked about that on the show, actually. Now that you bring that up, I remember.
Apple Intelligence kind of sucks. If we're calling a spade. I was doing something before on Apple on my phone that I needed something done, like in Apple, like just like on my home screen or something like that, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I just like did the little button for Apple Intelligence, and I was like, hey, do this for me, and it was completely inept. Couldn't do it at all. Had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, okay, well, this is like a pretty useless model, and so it's not doing what we wanted it to do.